Welcome you to this meeting of the Johnson City Commission for September the 16th. We're meeting originally at 6 p.m. here in the chambers of the Municipal and Safety Building. If you'll join me in standing for the invocation. Do we have Pastor Edwards with us? Yes, sir.
Glorious God, you promised to open doors of blessings and abundance for your people. We ask that you would mightily work through us today. Come upon us and cause us to have a productive meeting. Lead each one of us so that we can make fruitful contributions at this time. Enable us to think and strategize in ways that will achieve great results in your will. Purify our thoughts and motives so that each one of us will enter this meeting desiring good of others and the pleasure of your name. Amen.
Thank you. If you'll face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mayor, your first order of business is approval of the minutes of your meeting held on September the 2nd.
Are there modifications or a motion to approve?
Move approval.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hutter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler?
Abstain, I was not here.
Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Your next order of business is the presentation of a proclamation recognizing Morgan Rankin as the Tennessee Teacher of the Year. If you come forward, please. We have masked guests with us that are going to join us this evening, too.
On the side.
Ms. Rankin? Ms. Rankin here? Oh, there she is. That's all right.
You're good at something else, that's for sure.
So would you like to go first? Okay. Whereas the Tennessee Department of Education hosts an annual Teacher of the Year program to recognize and honor superior teachers from across the state who care about children, devote themselves to enriching the lives of Tennessee students, and who demonstrate exceptional gains in student achievement. And whereas in order to qualify for Teacher of the Year, candidates must have been teaching full-time for at least 3 years, have a track record of exceptional gains in student learning, and be effective school and community leaders. And whereas Morgan Rankin, second grade teacher at Southside Elementary, has been teaching in the state of Tennessee for 7 years and demonstrates enthusiasm for learning, tremendous empathy for her students, collaboration with her peers, and a dedication to persevere with excellence during a hectic school year. And whereas Morgan Rankin is a founding member of the Blue Ridge Literacy Project, an initiative dedicated to delivering professional development and research-based literacy practices for Tennessee teachers. And whereas Morgan Rankin was officially named Tennessee Teacher of the Year after advancing through various levels of selection, beginning as one of over 237 applicants, narrowed to 27 semifinalists, and then to 9 finalists before the final panel review. And whereas, as Tennessee Teacher of the Year, Morgan Rankin will serve as an ambassador for education in the state, join the other 8 finalists on Commissioner Schwinn's Teacher Advisory Council for the duration of the 21-22 school year, and to also represent the state in the National Teacher of the Year competition. Here's what you've been waiting for. Now, therefore, I, Joseph Wise, Mayor of the City of Johnson City, congratulate Morgan Rankin for achieving this outstanding recognition and honor, and extend appreciation for her outstanding service in our community and to and for our students. So I thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah. So we are very, very proud of Ms. Rankin. This is a very special award. Rebecca called me and said, we've got a Teacher of the Year. And I thought, okay, great, we'll do a thing. So I did a resolution of proclamation for our Teacher of the Year. And then she said, wait a minute, she just won the whole state. so we had to do another one. This is the second one we've done. And I have to thank Representative Alexander for really, taking the point on this and making sure that everything went well in Nashville when she came there to be given this award. And so, but we wanted to do this special thing from the legislature to honor her. And we actually, we took the newspaper to Nashville with us and made sure they framed it that way. But, I can tell you, my daughter Katie taught for many years, and I'm a member of the Education Committee. Been on, Charlie, I guess, the Education Senate Committee for 20-some years. I know how hard it is to teach, how hard it is to be a great teacher. And Ms. Rankin makes teaching fun, and that's what matters. Rebecca, let me hold that while you say a few words.
You go ahead.
No, that's okay. We won't read the whole thing. You go ahead.
We just want to tell you, you have honored our city. You've made us very proud, and we thank you for what you're doing in education and teaching our children. We can't thank you enough for that. We're so honored to have you in our school system. Thank you.
And we want to present this to you with an extra copy there.
This is amazing.
Well, it's a little big for a pregnant woman, so I'll carry it.
There you go. Yeah. We're proud of you. And an extra copy for you.
Half mask.
Half mask. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
All right, your next order of business is the presentation of a proclamation recognizing suicide prevention awareness.
All right. Whereas suicide is one of the most disruptive and tragic events a family and a community can experience, with more than 1,100 lives lost in Tennessee each year and an estimated 25 attempts of suicide for each suicide death. And whereas suicide is the 9th leading cause of death in Tennessee and the 2nd leading cause of death amongst people ages 10 to 24 and 25 to 34, and the leading cause for youth ages 15 to 24. And whereas more than 3 lives a day are lost to suicide in Tennessee, which means 21 Tennesseans are lost each week and 97 per month. And these veterans, and whereas Tennessee veterans, active duty military, and National Guardsmen face a disproportionate risk as compared to the general population, with more dying from suicide than combat. And whereas public awareness of this tragic problem is the key to preventing further suffering and loss, and the risk of human self-destruction can be reduced through awareness, education, and treatment, as the highest risk for suicide is amongst the survivors of those who have died by suicide or those who have attempted suicide. Whereas Tennessee is a national leader in the effort to prevent suicides, being one of the first states to develop a suicide prevention and evaluation plan covering the lifespan, and whereas suicide prevention has been declared a state priority by the governor, and by the Tennessee legislature has declared teen suicide prevention as a state priority in partnership with the Tennessee Suicide Prevention Network to implement the Tennessee Strategy for Suicide Prevention. And whereas the Tennessee Suicide Prevention Network is a grassroots collaboration of Tennesseans and organizations working to eliminate the stigma of suicide, educate the community about the warning signs of suicide, and ultimately reduce the rate of suicide in our state. And whereas every member of the community should understand that throughout life's struggles, we all need occasional reminders that we are all silently fighting our own battles. And whereas we encourage all Tennesseans to take the time to inquire as to the well-being of their family and friends, to genuinely convey their appreciation for their existence by any gesture they deem appropriate, and to remember that, that a simple phone call, message, handshake, or hug can go a long way toward helping someone realize that suicide is not the answer. Now, therefore, I, Joe Wise, the mayor of the city of Johnson City, do hereby proclaim September 2021 as Suicide Prevention Awareness Month.
Thank you so much, Mayor Wise, and all of our commission. You all have been so supportive of this for many, many years now, being a wonderful partner to TSPN and what we're trying to do across our state. So we very much appreciate the support. There are far too many people that struggle in silence, and the word suicide is such a stigma word that we are working very hard to decrease that stigma because so many people are struggling. So we really appreciate what you all are doing. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate you and your work and hope someday it won't be necessary.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes.
Oh, by all means. Okay. You want me
Me
to?
to get, okay.
Okay. Do you mask on or mask off? I don't know. We'll mask on.
Yeah.
Okay. No.
Can't you tell?
Thank you. Thank you.
At this time, I'd like to ask Mr. Witherspoon and several of his employees to come forward, please.
Sorry. Forgot.
And if it's okay, Mr. Peterson, I'm gonna stay at the podium. So
Please.
let these handsome gentlemen get up here on the awards. This is Jeff Corder. Jeff's over our treatment facility maintenance. Jeff's been with us for a number of years, approaching 30. Aaron Mullins is his chief operator over wastewater, and we've got a number of awards, and we're gonna leave these sitting on the table, but a total of 6 awards that the city's 3 wastewater plants earned for calendar year 2020. They successfully treated almost 6.5 billion gallons of wastewater through the plants, which is a very large number. As the commission's aware, it's a 24/7, 365 operation. Anytime we get a rain event, flows go up a little bit. While the facilities are staffed, the supervisors usually report to the plant, so that might be during the normal working day or that may be after hours. We'll talk about the pandemic in just a minute. In addition to Mr. Corder, Mr. Mullins, each of the plant has an operator in responsible charge. In the packet, those 3 individuals, and I'd like to call them out, 2 of the 3 have retired since the last time we were before y'all with the plant awards. Albert Greenwell retired this year. He was the operator in charge of the Knob Creek plant. Darrell Thompson retired also this year. He was in charge of the Brush Creek wastewater treatment plant. Nick Street, who is at the regional plant, has taken the responsibility over at Knob Creek, and then we have 2 brand-new operator 3s that have come in from other systems that have filled those 2 positions. So the 2 awards that they've got tonight are the National Association of Clean Water Agency Awards. Who's got the Knob Creek Award? Aaron's got the Knob Creek Award, and under the operator 3 over there, that plant has had 7 continuous years without a plant violation. Jeff has the regional plant award. That plant has 11 continuous years without a violation. And then for this past 12-month period, Brush Creek had no violations either. So they've done an outstanding job. We'll talk just a minute about the pandemic. Mayor, we only have 1 slide. I'm sorry. So, y'all may remember seeing this slide in our budget presentation, but Ms. Graham helped me update. It's 549 days into what we have prepared for and been dealing with on the pandemic. And to the staff's credit, you know, if the water sewer director goes down with an illness for a period of time, the ship will go fine. But these folks that operate the plants are very specialized, and we've locked the plants down since March 15th of last year. Employees have taken the necessary precautions, and they've done an outstanding job, and they continue to do that. So those are the awards that we've got for you tonight. It's all right, though. All right. They're more focused, yeah.
I don't know about that.
Thank you. Thank y'all.
Good job, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Your next order of business is consideration of a Class 1 on-premise beer license for Pinto Sushi Thai Kitchen located at 2203 McKinley Road, Suite 100. The appropriate reviews have been made, finding no disqualifying factors, and the recommendation is for approval.
Is the applicant here? If you'll come to the podium, please. If you'll give your name and your business address, please.
My name is Natnisha Sivaram, and the business address is 2203 McKinley Road, Suite 100, Johnson City.
And have you read the rules and regulations concerning the sale of alcohol in the city? And do you agree to abide by them? All right, thank you. Are there questions for the applicant?
Move for approval.
We have a motion
Second.
and a second. If there's no objection, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes. Would you like to tell us anything about your establishment? Or should we just come try it out ourselves? Okay, all right. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Next order of business is consideration of a beer license application for Broadway 2021 LLC, doing business as Bud's Discount Tobacco. This is for a Class 2 off-premise license. The appropriate reviews have been made, finding no disqualifying factors, and the recommendation is for approval.
You'll give your name and business address.
My name is Samit Kumapate, and business address is 145 South Broadway Street.
And have you read the rules and regulation concerning the sale of alcohol?
Yeah.
And do you agree to abide by them?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Are there questions for the applicant?
No. Move for approval.
Motion, and is there a second?
A second.
We have a second. If there's not objection, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes. Congratulations. Is there anything else you'd like to tell us about your establishment? All right. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Next order of business is to make one appointment to the Board of Dwelling Standards and Review to replace Mr. Dave Jenny. Dave has had to resign from the board, and there were applications that were received when you made appointments in June, so we just pulled those applications forward, and they're in your packet.
Mayor, I would, are you looking for
Yes.
a motion?
Yeah,
I would, after reviewing the applicants, Mr. Ashley, I believe is the way you say his name, David Ashley, would make a fine member of that board.
I would second
recommend
that.
him.
that's a motion and a second to appoint David Ashley. Are there other,
Well, I wish there were two openings
I
because
know.
I think Carla Rutledge is a good candidate as well. And it adds some much-needed representation at that level. I don't know if we have that, so are we going to be represented well in the community with Mr. David? Just looking at the variety of representatives there, I think we need to take that in consideration.
is that a motion?
Well, I'm making a motion for Carla Rutledge.
Okay, is there a second?
Do we want to call for a vote on which one we would like?
Yeah, I
to-
mean, and I think that's fair. Would you prefer to just do a roll call between the two candidates?
Sure.
Probably so.
So withdraw the motion and second.
Right. I guess it would be picking between Ashley and Rutledge.
Okay. Commissioner Brock,
Ashley.
Commissioner Hunter,
Ashley?
Commissioner Murphy,
Rutledge.
Vice Mayor Fowler,
Ashley?
and Mayor Wise.
I'll vote with Commissioner Murphy, just so he's not all alone on this one.
You're so kind.
But I agree, I think both are good candidates.
I do too,
So-
Next order of business is consideration of the consent agenda.
We'll look for items to pull. I guess we'll start with Commissioner Hunter. Do you have items you wish to see pulled?
7.1, 10, and 12.
10 and 12?
Correct.
Okay.
And just as a point of reference, on 7.1.2, just curious where the polls were coming from. Were they from Poland?
Oh. Okay, you're out of order.
Oh, I was gonna say
Yeah, I'm
Santa
sorry.
Claus.
You're out of order, Commissioner.
I need to take that one.
Yeah, Commissioner.
Yeah, I do have several, and I sent my list to Mr. Peterson
You're
earlier today. There are some really great projects on this consent agenda, and I think that it would be good to review these and to let the public hear about them as
I'll
well.
start rattling them off.
Yeah, 7.1.2,
Yes.
3, 4, and 5.
All right.
And then 7.2.1 and 7.3.7.
Okay. Commissioner Murphy, did you have items you wish to see pulled?
There were several already mentioned, but I'd like to talk about 7.1. 7.1.1.
Point one, okay. Thank you. Is that all you had?
Yes, sir.
All right. Vice Mayor?
Mine are covered, so.
Yeah, there's a pretty lengthy list, so I guess we'll just take them in order.
Bill, batter up. Looks like you get 4 or 5 swings at the ball here.
5 in a row. I think.
Please, sir.
We've got just a slight presentation on the traffic control box wraps, just to kind of give you an idea about these little projects. This is Cheyenne, Kumbar.
So the Public Art Committee selected designs to be printed on vinyl wraps and installed on traffic control boxes at 8 locations throughout the city. 2 of these intersections include a smaller traffic control box positioned right next to the larger one. And so artwork was designed for both boxes at these locations. So that's why you'll see a total of 10 wrap designs represented here. These are the designs that were selected. First, we have Music is Life by Amal Saraf. This is Beta Fish by Brooklyn Beaver. And this is one of those double box locations. So this is the larger box and this is the smaller box. We have Iris by Emmanuel Gonzalez. We have The Chase by Keely Herzl. This is Summer Sky by Rebecca Steele. Over and Under Water Life by Susan Champagny. Whitewater Fun by Victoria Prometheus. And this is, of course, another double box location. And finally, Taco Time by Will Eskridge. So those are all of the designs.
Cheyenne, are these local artists?
They are from all over. Some of them are local, and then others are anywhere across the U.S.
Other questions?
When will they be installed?
They should be installed within the next month, I would think.
It's nice. It really kind of steps up our curb appeal in the city. Yeah.
Yeah, you'll note that we're into murals, so we got a couple in the works, actually 3. And then this is just kind of adding art. So the Public Art Committee is just doing an outstanding job presenting art to the community, and I think it's really been beneficial for a lot. The next one is the Smart City Polls proposal. Got a little presentation on that one as well. If I can find it. This is a joint project between, among TVA, Bright Ridge, and the city of Johnson City. And TVA forwarded Mark Eads from Bright Ridge is here tonight. But anyway, the TVA had a grant for $335,000. And it's really to add a smart component to light poles. When light poles are going to LED, that presents some options on the loads that they can carry, because you're diminishing the loads from high pressure sodium to LED. So they've come up with a program that presents options. And it could be anywhere from, you could integrate the cameras, traffic sensors, microphones for audio in areas. You could do message boards, environmental sensors, programmable directional signage. So it's putting a sign on a pole and actually almost acting like a billboard, but it provide messages. Wi-Fi or cellular service integration, and you can monitor the usage of power in the street lights and dim them if you want. This is sort of a list of what I just indicated, and down at the bottom are different ideas that you could utilize the system. In Johnson City, because we're limited for $335,000, it took a lot of effort on the part of Mark and TVA and their representatives. And then we brought in IntelliStreet, which is a company located in Detroit, Michigan, that designs a lot of these systems around the country. They actually came into town and reviewed all the locations. And what we ended up with was, remember, we're restricted by 2 things. One was the total cost of the grant, because we don't want to put local funds into it. And then the second was, because of time constraints, we have to get moving by September 30th. We couldn't do anything really in the historic district. That would require a lot of environmental reviews that we estimate would take roughly 7 months to complete. So what we ended up with was the first element of the project would be to provide audio in Founders Park. So at Christmas time, for example, you could have different Christmas music and so on, those type of things. The second was to provide for a stream gauge, so that when we know that things are going to be in flood conditions, we want to alert the public not to enter the park. So there will be both audio and visual presentations to the public to stay out of the park. Police will be notified, everybody will be notified so that that would occur. Another one was, we wanted to keep count of the pedestrian movements. So we have some sensors there. We wanted to be able to make the lights dimmable late at night, say 1 o'clock or so, just to conserve power. I think that was all of them, Mark, that we had involved in the project at Founders. Then we would move to the playground area and provide for audio at the playground area so they could have kids' programs and kids' music and that sort of thing. And all of the system hooks into the iCloud and we're able to communicate even by a cell phone. We then talked a little bit about, well, what happens if we really like the project, like the ease, the type of products that we're receiving, what would be some other things. The first one we talked about was cameras. We need cameras downtown. And so we can change out in later phases. We could work independently of TVA with this, work with Bright Ridge to change the poles and put cameras in, and we did have some presentation of cameras. We'd want to maybe consider the functionality of the system to provide for message boards for like parking, so that if you drive up to, say, Downtown Square and it's full, then it would direct you to another lot and so on and so forth. We thought that would be a nice addition for the public. We could do other message boards, but those are sort of the ones I was most focused on. And the camera system really needs to be all throughout the downtown area. And finally, we have talked about, since we do have time, whether or not to go ahead on the front end and integrate some of the programs available through this to West Walnut Street. So we would adapt it and do it on the front end rather than running around trying to retrofit everything. So that was kind of the long term. And so at the end of the day, it's a $335,000 grant, and that's the money that will be spent. The grant funds, once the next item, which is the contract, once that's signed, what TVA will do is the money will flow through the power board. The power board will be kind of overseeing the project, and so it really doesn't come into the city coffers. And so they'll write them a check for $335,000, and then the power board, Bright Ridge, turns around and enters into a contract with IntelliStreet out of Detroit. We're involved because we kind of own everything. We have to pay for everything. So at the end of the day, it's a wonderful project. I think the public will really like it. We're thinking about putting floodlights in, we'll talk about that, in order to provide color, say, on the grounds in the parks, so that when you have different types of festivals or that sort of thing, we can change colors, and kind of adds to what Cheyenne and the Public Art Committee are doing, is try to present a different flavor of Johnson City.
Bill, is this technology that will be added to our current poles, or are the poles replaced?
7 of them will have to be replaced in order to get the type of instrumentation in to be able to, everything feeds into those 7 poles, and those poles will be communicating through the iCloud and back to us.
We can match up those new poles with what we
Yes.
currently have.
It might be a little bit different, but not much. And then long-term, we are getting some age on some of the street lights, and they probably need to be upgraded. We talked about repainting some of the streetlights. Well, rather than do that, it probably costs as much as just going ahead and purchasing one of these type poles to give us the flexibility to convert them to smart poles.
How many Christmas trees are gonna be in the park that we're gonna be listening to music, Christmas music with this year?
It's a fun project. It's consuming us, but we'll have 150 trees, and they'll be in both Founders Park and King Commons, and up along the amphitheater. It's just going to be a wonderful scene, I think, in both areas.
Sounds like you're making it better every year, so.
And the question I would have is Watauga Orthopedics a sponsor of one of those trees?
I think
You
they
better.
took 2 or 3.
Okay.
Pretty
all right.
sure.
No, I've signed
They
up.
will.
I'm sure Beacon will also be signing up.
I think that's right.
Now, we've had a tremendous response from the last round, and there's some people had to be left out. So they're working hard to get that, and then the revenues generated from that will cover the people who have to stay there all throughout the night to guard the ornaments and stuff.
To bring people in from all over the region. Even last year it did.
So this next one is wherever I put that. Excuse me. The support pilot agreement, what that is a replacement for the previous one that was approved about a month ago. TVA came back and said they needed that adjusted. Apparently somebody else handles their contract, so that's what that is. That's pretty much, it's been reviewed by our attorney, everything's good to go. The Multi-Modal Access Grant, what that is, sorry for just moving forward. What that is building a sidewalk system along Bristol Highway. It has to be along a state route. And it will run from Mulberry Street, which is around Creekmore Drive, where the sidewalk ends in that area, all the way out to Wing Deer, so that we can get pedestrian access. It gives neighborhoods access and really is, would be a nice feature. It's just something we haven't been able to get to ourselves, this grant, although it seems like a lot of money, will be if we receive the funds, would be great. We would be responsible for 5% of that cost, so figure that we can handle that in our operating budget, around $50,000 or so dollars, 47.
What's the width of, that you're thinking?
Yeah, we're looking at 5 and try to get more. We
Or-
really would like to see the trail system,
Yeah.
but some areas is very difficult to get that through.
It would be
Pretty-
good to
pretty
be able to ride a
impressive.
bicycle. yeah.
$1 million worth, and we're putting 50,000 up, so that's a great deal for us, so.
Yeah, it'll be a nice addition, and that's just something we ought to be focused on over the next few years. We're trying to build them now, so I think that covers me.
TDOT Consolidated Planning Grant is next.
Glenberry?
Hello. It's been a while since I've seen some of you all. It's good to see you again. But we do have an item on the agenda for called the Consolidated Planning Grant, and give you a little background. We used to have 2 separate grants. One was strictly for highways, one was strictly for transit planning. TDOT has decided to merge those. That's why it's called a Consolidated Planning Grant. They have changed the matching ratio. It used to be 80-20, 80% us, 20%, 80% federal, 20% us. So now they've gone to the point where 80% federal, 5% state, and 15% thing. Now, what do we do with that money? It's strictly for planning. You can't build stuff with it. You just can't. That's federal law. But some of the major things, basically it pays my salary, or 85% of it. Mary Butler, who works for me, covers her. We use it to meet federal requirements. The feds said, you know, we want you all to do this, but we're going to give you some money to help you do that. So that's what this is for. We're going to start out two studies that we are wrapping, or one that we're wrapping up, something called the TMA study, Transportation Management Area Study. This popped up a few years ago during the census where they were thinking, Census Bureau was thinking about making one urbanized area. Well, we kind of got blindsided, to be honest. If you did that, what does that mean? It changes some of the dynamics of what we are required to do if we go over a population of 200,000, which if by some chance the Census Bureau looked at the urbanized area of Kingsport and Johnson City and said, hey, we're going to take that line that you all have that separates you two and make it one, then the Federal Highway Administration would say, you're now a transportation management area. And you have these additional requirements. So what we've been doing in preparation for that, we do not know if it will happen, but we've been planning for it. We're going to have a presentation coming up, and I believe those invitations have already gone out. And I think that it is September 28th. We're going to have it in the Jonesboro, due to the size capacity, we're going to have it at the Jonesboro Visitor Center and go over our findings and let people know, especially you all, since you're elected leaders, what this would entail, because you all will be making the decisions as we move forward with this. So this is something you brought up, Mayor, in the past. I'm sorry, once a mayor, always a mayor. You're still the mayor. But this is something. So we want to plan for that, make sure nobody's blindsided, make sure we can leverage all the federal funds that we can. So that's one of the things we're doing right now. There's something called a regional ITS architecture. It's very technical. Very briefly, it is required federal if you want to do anything from cameras on traffic signals to coordinating traffic signals to camera on buses. We worked out a deal with TDOT where they're going to provide all the match for that one. So it will be no cost to the city this time around, and we're getting ready to start that. There is one that keeps funding flowing to the region, 5310 funding. It's called the Update to the Coordinated Public Transit Human Services Transportation Plan. This makes Johnson City and Jonesboro eligible for 5310 funds. And what does that mean? Senior citizens, senior centers can buy basically buses, or not buses, but vehicles to transport their people. They usually buy vans, and that's going on. Then the big one is the update to the Metropolitan Transportation Plan. We saved money up over 5 years to pay for this plan on the federal side. This is what allows us to fund every time you see something that says STB, STBG funds on a project, it's got to be in our plan. Feds require it to be updated every 5 years. We're supposed to look for a 25-year horizon, and this is the plan that does that. We will be, to be quite honest, we've done a pretty good job. All of the federal projects that were in Johnson City's plan last time are done, with the exception of about 3, and there were some technical reasons why they didn't apply. One was widening of I-26. That one,
That ain't ever gonna happen.
it ain't gonna, it's just the way costs have it's just changed. I have to be really, Pete's right, it's not gonna happen, not while I'm around here. But all the others, exit 13, exit 17, exit 24, those are the big ones I think of. Indian Ridge, and those projects have to be in the plan. The plan has to be physically constrained. In other words, you just can't throw it in there and leave it. You've got to show where the money's going to come from, and it's got to be reasonable, and you've got to do a cost estimate when you think you're going to do it. So it's a very complicated process. It does make the projects that we have eligible. And then lastly, when you get through all of that, there's a thing called the Transportation Improvement Program. And I know Phil's dying to get to that because that's where he gets his money from on certain projects. We've got to update that. But I have to update the long-range plan on certain projects before they can get put in there. Because like I said, if they're not in the long-range plan, we can't put them in there. There's a little caveat in that. I can work around with some safety projects, and we're trying to do that with one of that that he wants to do. And I think that we can get it, but I can't guarantee it till it runs by the feds. So, are there any questions? I know I went over a lot real quick.
Glenn, is there any of the federal money, like through the recovery plan, or if this infrastructure bill goes through, that's coming to you?
There's a small portion of around $690,000 that we've got sitting out there. Phil has identified one project he wants to do with it, but it's probably going to cost more than that. We still have to work through a workshop with the executive staff to make sure all the regional partners agree on it. And I've been talking to them individually to get them briefed on that.
Any other questions? I believe you that the programs are complicated because even the titles of the programs sound complicated.
They are.
Glenn does a good job explaining them, though. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think the next item is the interlocal agreement relative to the Ash Street Courthouse, Commissioner Hunter, 7110.
What you have in your packet, and Randy, you might as well head on this way, please, sir. As you're familiar, the city and the county identified some time ago the need to renovate and rehab the Ash Street Courthouse. And for 2 years, we went to Nashville asking for some state funding on that project. The governor was kind enough to include $5 million for the renovation of that building in his budget this past year. We have been awarded that money. The county owns the building. We got the money to do the rehab project. So what this agreement does is defines the terms and conditions of the relationship. And in brief summary, we got the money. We're going to manage the project. We're going to hire the design build team and oversee the construction project, fulfilling all of the goals and objectives that were in the proposal that we made to the governor to receive the funding that we got, and ensure that there remains a public use for that building, because the county only owns that building so long as there's a public use involved. And we needed to memorialize the relationship with the county as to who was responsible for what. That's what this document does.
Are there questions for Mr. Peterson or Mr. Trivett?
Has the county approved the interlocal agreement?
This
yet?
will go before the county commission at their meeting Monday week.
For some reason in my packet, the actual document was not there.
This got added today. You should have gotten an email sometime midday about this.
Okay. And you know
Yes,
where I was, so I have not seen it.
Questions for Mr. Trivett? Thank you, sir.
Hang on, you can explain.
I was gonna say, you got anything to
Yeah,
add?
don't go too far.
Right.
You want to go ahead and explain the bid associated with this project while you're up here,
Absolutely.
please, sir.
We actually, when Mr. Peterson talked to me about getting the $5 million grant for this project to do a renovation, we issued RFPs for proposals for a design build team. We felt like, based on the time limits with the grant funding, that work needed to go on before the design could be done. We did a little research and found out to get a complete set of design drawings and construction documents completed and then put it out to bid for a contractor to come in was going to take us past the time limit that we had to get the work completed. So we felt a design build project was the best. So we issued an RFP for that. We had a lot of good response from that. We walked through the specifications in the RFP were to restore the building to a safe, code compliant condition. There's been a lot of where the building's been vacated for so long. There's a lot of issues with mechanical, the electrical, the plumbing. The roof had some issues. It's been replaced. So now going back and repairing the cosmetic issues on the inside, restoring it back to its design that it was at originally, like the second floor courthouse has got some beautiful wood molding. There's beautiful staircase inside. The first floor has post office remnants and style and design to try to go back to do that. The exterior is not going to take a lot of work. It's in fairly good condition. There'll be some brick repair and pointing and tooling and doing all that. So, and then we want to make sure it's ADA accessible. So they're going to have to look at installing an elevator at some way, put in an additional set of stairs to be code compliant. And so all that'll go on while the design's being done. The demo can be performed. Some of the hazardous material can be evaluated and abated while the work's going on. So we had 4 respondents from that. Like I said, there was a lot of interest. We took those responses. We had a point system criteria based on qualifications and experience, based on technical capability, based on schedule, and we added those points in and assigned points to each of the firms who applied. There was 3 people on the committee, the selection committee, which was Mr. Peterson, myself, and Mayor Grandy. So we evaluated what we were wanting to see done with the grant dollars and what was presented to the governor and assigned points to that. And so the point, once they were all totaled from all 3 of us who independently graded it, Clark Nixon, which is the Ken Ross firm, and Burwell Construction was the company that was selected based on the point system.
That.
And I will point out, in conversation with the state, they have told us that we have until June the 30th of 2022 to spend $5 million on that project. So that's the reason you're seeing a lot of this coming at you real fast, and hopefully you will continue to see invoices and updates coming at you really fast.
That's correct.
I don't know that I've ever been challenged to spend $5 million in 10 months, but we're going to do it.
I've been
We're gonna
describing
get
it
this
as
done.
Brewster's Millions to try to get that much spent in 9 months. And so it's going to be difficult and get a scope of work outlined that we want to see done that we're all going to be very happy with so that that can be used for the public and open to the public.
So Pete, how will the public area, what's the process that will be used working with the county and how it's determined what the public use of the building is going to be?
What we were awarded the $5 million on was based on that becoming an economic development center primarily directed towards entrepreneurship, small business and startup business. So that will be the primary function of that facility, and all of that is a public use.
Is that spelled out? I'm sorry, I haven't been able to read this document. Is it all spelled out on that, how all that,
That was
those decisions
that
will
was
be
the
reached?
essence of the ask that we took to the governor. So, yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm just wondered if the county has agreed upon this, yeah.
And that was spelled out in the RFP as well, that it would be used as a business incubator. Not exactly sure what business would be in there, but that would be a good economic driver for that area of Walnut Street and Ash Street.
Thank you.
I think we're now to Memorial Park.
Pickleball.
Pickleball?
Mayor, Commissioners, we have a very small PowerPoint presentation that should explain our request to convert our tennis courts to a pickleball complex. And I am not the expert, so I'll defer to our resident pickleball guru, Ms. Fogel.
You've been promoted.
I think sometimes in name only. Why do we want to do this? One reason is pickleball is the fastest growing sport in the U.S. right now. There's 4.2 million players, and those are sanctioned players. And that's not even counting some of the other players that are out there playing that we don't know about. In 2020, the pickleball grew by 21%, which was amazing because you could play pickleball outside, and everybody wanted to be outside with the pandemic. We currently have 172 players that we know of at MPCC. Currently close to 500 players in the Tri-Cities area that we know of. We think there's an opportunity for growth in young adults, in children, and family activity. I think it's a quicker sport to learn than tennis, except for the scoring. We think we can increase the number of tournaments that we have. If we have 12 courts, we think we could accommodate 150 to 190 players. If we did a 3-day tournament, that could possibly bring in 400 people and an economic boost to this community. Also, we think there's an increased opportunity for league play, not only at partnering with ETSU, but Milligan University and also Northeast State. If you look at our players and our visits, just with MPCC in 2017, we had 100 players, and you see the number of visits that we had during that year. If we go down to 2019, we increased to 230 and increased to almost double the number of visits that we had. And then the pandemic hit. So we were forced to move outside, so that decreased our number of players. But since being reopened, and also our people were playing both inside and outside, we've grown back to 172, and this is data at the end of July. If I look at what we are doing right now outside at the pickleball courts or at the tennis courts, I've been here with the city for about 6 years now. I have never seen the tennis courts have much use. And so we actually did some tracking. Number of tennis players that I saw on the courts throughout the day, throughout the month, comparing those to pickleball players. And you see in the tennis players in March, 6 compared to 393, and you go in April, I don't ever see double digits with tennis players. And that's throughout the day, and I try to track it between 9 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the afternoon. So we sort of have an idea of when that is. The cost estimate is approximately $100,000, and this was given to us by a tennis court company. We do have the funds presently available in some senior accounts, reserve funds. This conversion was taken to our Senior Advisory Council and unanimously endorsed. It was endorsed by our Senior Center Foundation and also the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. The project would include converting the 4 tennis courts to 12 pickleball courts, realigning the courts to face Burt Street. The courts are in the wrong position. They're facing north and south, or about north and south, and that's the sun. And then it needs to be really faced the other way to eliminate some of that sun. We resurface and restripe the courts. We would need to increase the center fence in order to allow protection between the 3 courts, and also installing permanent pickleball nets on each court. No adjustments are need to be made to the lights or to the fence. We would just go right in where we are right now. Presently, if you look at the left hand, this is our tennis courts now, and we have actually marked off 8 pickleball courts. We can get a pickleball court on each side of the tennis net, but that requires a portable net. And a lot of our folks during the pandemic purchased their own portable nets to come out and play pickleball. This is what we're suggesting, that we convert these to 12 pickleball courts. And this is just showing you some of our outdoor pickleball folks. And then there is our indoor pickleball tournament that we had that had 60 players on our very first tournament. We're hoping to have about 100 players in our next tournament. So that's our proposal, and that's what we're requesting.
Are there questions for Ms. Vogel?
And y'all offer like introductory to pickleball on
Yes,
Thursdays? Did I
I'm
see that
doing
yet?
Pickleball 101, and I had 20 before we closed in the pandemic, and I'm going to offer another one. So, yes, and we're actually offering a champion of the court pickleball. And Kingsport is doing this, Bristol is doing this. And so we'll have 7 weeks where we actually have 24 players that will play about 8 matches, and we'll get a champion. So, yes. I think the opportunity also to grow. I was coming in and playing the other night, and I had a person who was from a company. He said he was coming to show some of his co-workers how to play pickleball. So I think you could have an opportunity where you could get employers, we show them how to play pickleball, and then have some competition between some of the businesses in the community.
This will make how many pickleball courts will we have then in
If
Parks
we
and Rec?
are allowed to do the 4 courts, the tennis courts, it would be 12. And then we have 6 indoor courts. We have 6 indoor courts inside the center at MPCC, and then we have 2 courts marked off at Keystone.
So we could host a big tournament then, yeah.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Good job, Deb.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I guess the next item is synthetic turf.
And that was just for a real quick review. I know it's already down, it's been played on, but what our final cost is and
Just to give you a recap, this project included the complete removal and replacement of the existing field turf that we installed in 2010 and when we completed Kermit Tipton Stadium. So the analysis of the turf, field turf typically lasts 10 to 15 years on average, depending on use. And we actually were fortunate to get 11 years out of that turf. We did maintain it well. We brushed it on the cycle, but still the usage at our stadium, if you've ever been up there, is just not limited to football. So we have all sorts of activity, and soccer is obviously another component of that. We then decided to bid out the project. We had 5 bids. This project was awarded to Sprint Turf back in May for a cost of $434,405, and it was initiated. We actually issued the notice to proceed in May, and the turf was under fabrication for about 30 days, and it had an installation time of another 30 days. To be frank, we hoped that the project would be complete by the 1st of August. Obviously, the mobilization of the company, Sprint Turf, did not occur at that time, and did eventually occur to where it was substantially completed within they did have a drop-dead date of August 20th, and there was a substantial completion at that time. But the home football game, as you know, the first game had to be relocated, which strangely enough provided an opportunity that we did not foresee. So apparently we've understood that the gate receipts of moving the home football game to East Tennessee State to have the season opener was really a positive. And so that doesn't mean that we wouldn't like to see the turf completed by our first home game at Kermit Tipton, but this is one of 2 installments. The project is substantially complete according to CHA. We did have a punch list of some items that needed to be addressed, and I was told today by both Keith Turner and CHA that everything has been addressed as we speak. So this is the first of what would be a second installment, will probably be a month from now, coming before you. So this is a payment for $267,253, and there'll be another one to finish out the balance of the bid.
what was the funding source? Did it come out of our capital budget?
I believe the PEP, if I
okay.
remember correctly.
If you haven't been there, tons better than the old turf now, and the logo on the middle of the field is unbelievably nice. And I know Charlie and Pete both walked out there. I got to stand for a few more hours than they did on it. It's really nice. So
I was very impressed too. We got to stand on it.
Ended up being a great project. After all, I think everybody is largely satisfied with what the result is.
let you know, the first time we played on turf as a game, when it was original, there were 2 ACL tears that night. And we had 0 knee injuries at the first game. So that was bad for Watauga Orthopedics, but good for the kids. So we're happy about that.
That's good to know.
Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Next is 737 gasoline and diesel fuel contract. Gasoline and diesel fuel contract.
Yeah, I was just wondering what the impact of higher gas prices has been to the city.
It's still within budgeted amounts. There really isn't, there shouldn't be any financial impact to it this particular year.
Are there other questions on that one? If not, I think that was everything indicated for pulling from the consent agenda.
I would move for approval.
We have a
Second.
motion, and did I hear a second?
Yes.
Okay. There's not objection. Ms. Jennings, if you'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Take us to ordinances, beginning with ordinance number 4789-21. An ordinance to amend the zoning map of the city of Johnson City, Tennessee, being part of the appendix to ordinance number 1519, entitled An Ordinance to Adopt a Code of Laws and Ordinances for the City of Johnson City, Tennessee, and to repeal all laws and ordinances in conflict therewith and amendatory thereof by changing from B4 Planned Arterial Business Zoning to R5 High-Density Residential Zoning, certain property located at 1072 West Oakland Avenue is ready for your consideration on second reading and public hearing.
Good evening. I prefer this than the mouse. Just to orient us again, we went over this in the first reading, but if there's anybody that wants to speak from the public, just to give them kind of a once-over. This site here is what we were talking about on West Oakland. What they would like to do is they are proposing a 288 apartment complex, which is a range of 1, 2-bedroom, and 3 bedrooms. It's the same developer that developed the Reserve. They have proposed 2 entrances. There's sidewalk along West Oakland, as well as they'll add a note that they will provide a decel lane on West Oakland with the 75 feet of taper. They are storing their water and doing the stormwater underground, and I believe that's, and everything else they're meeting other requirements they need to for a concept plan. Now, typically when we have concern, this is, I want to show you the renderings in case it comes up a little bit later. And typically in a rezoning within an apartment complex, the concerns from the public are density, traffic, and schools is what we've noticed. And so with density, we talked about this last time. This gives an example of the density in the area as well as what they're proposing, which is 15.72 units an acre. It's less than what would be allowed in the R5 zoning. With traffic, at the first reading, we did talk about what would be allowed under the current zoning, and these are just comparative data sets as far as trip generations, like an ADT of 6,600 might be something for a 150,000 square foot building, which would be allowed on a B4 site. Whereas in the proposed rezoning, that trip generation does decrease, even though 288 does sound like a lot of cars. Just the way that math works, that's how it goes. And then with schools, I think the last time that they have provided a multiplier would be 2014, but using a 2014 multiplier for multifamily, this should add 61 students to our school system. It won't mean that it's 61 kindergartners, but they will be dispersed throughout the grades. And staff is here if you have any questions. I do know that the applicants' representatives are here to speak if you have some questions for them.
Are there questions for staff? Since it's public hearing, we'll go ahead and open the public hearing to anyone wishing to speak for or against ordinance 4789-21 and welcome you to the podium. And one at a time. Okay.
I'm Marcy Walker. I'm an attorney with Hunter Smith and Davis Law Firm. I represent the owners as well as the developers for this project. I don't know if you have any questions. I mean, they're very excited about this project. It's about a $54 million project. I know that there have been some comments about traffic, and yet when you look at the traffic flow of where people go to work, they will be coming because there's 2 access points. If they go Chase Drive to Hanover or West Oakland, they're going to be going to State of Franklin as opposed to the tunnel. You know, there's no shopping towards the tunnel, there's no grocery stores towards the tunnel, so really the flow of traffic is towards State of Franklin. And I know that, I mean, I live in Roundtree subdivision, so the roundabout has made a huge difference on Browns Mill as far as moving traffic along. So I know that, as I say, I've heard a couple concerns about that. But once again, this is the same developer that developed the reserve, and they still own the reserve, and they've maintained it. It's 100% occupied. They've got a waiting list, and so it's a project that, once again, that we're really excited about, and it will fill a need in this area. The other thing, just so that you all know, that when the reserve was done, the owners of the property donated a little over 3 acres to the city along West Oakland so that that road can be widened whenever the city decided that they needed to do that. And so that was done back then, and I think there's already been plans and drawings and everything else done. So it's one of those things that if it turns out that they decide that it's ready, you all have that property.
And I think that's an important point. Mr. Peterson, I emailed you earlier today. There will be improvements to West Walnut.
Yes, there will.
There will be.
Sure will be.
There certainly would.
Maybe you could
As
kind of
part
And
of
the
this
people who live in these
project, there's a
apartments can drive across
requirement
town.
Of a
for left
deceleration.
and right-hand turn lanes into this project. So that is part of the development of this project,
Right.
yes. And then we've got the right-of-way at whatever point in time that there is additional improvements on that section of West Oakland.
there is planning in the future for
Yes.
improvements of West Oakland.
Yes.
Yep.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak for or against the proposed rezoning?
One other thing to say, even though this will probably have more meaning to Mr. Peterson than anyone else. But back when I was on the commission, one of the things that I complained about and other commissioners complained about was how difficult it was to work with the city on projects. And I just want you to know that this has been a pleasure, that working with Preston, working with Whitney, when I've called, when I've asked to have meetings with the staff to talk about this project, they've done it. And so it's really been a huge improvement. I just want to thank you and just let you know, because as I say, it's so much easier for people to complain about, what's not working. And when something's working right, I think it's equally important to let y'all know. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Yeah, we appreciate it.
Good job, Preston. Anyone else? If not, we'll close the public hearing. Turn to the commission for action.
Move
One
for
second.
approval.
We have a motion.
I'll second.
We have a second. If there's not objection, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Next order of business is consideration of ordinance number 4781-21. An ordinance to revise the code of the city of Johnson City to prohibit resetting fire alarm control panels by amending Title 7, Chapter 1 of the Code of the City of Johnson City, Tennessee, and repealing all ordinances and parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, is ready for your consideration on third and final reading. There have been no changes in the ordinance since you last approved it.
Are there questions? We have a motion
Second.
and a second. If there's not objection, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Next is ordinance number 4788-21. An ordinance authorizing the conveyance to Appalachia Service Project Incorporated of a certain parcel of real property owned by the city of Johnson City and located in the 9th Civil District of Washington County, Tennessee, upon the terms and conditions contained herein, and repealing all ordinances and parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, is ready for your consideration on third and final reading. There have been no changes to the ordinance since you last approved it.
So moved.
We have a motion.
Public hearing first.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. This is public hearing on third reading. We'll open the floor for public hearing for or against ordinance 4788-21. Close public hearing and return to Commissioner Murphy's motion.
So moved.
And
Second.
Second from Commissioner Hunter. If there's not objection, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Thank you. Next, as the biggest part of my manager's report, I'd like to ask Randy Trivet to come up and do a update on projects that we have in process. Thank you, Randy.
Thank you all.
We got some
In case
time
y'all
for
hadn't
3
figured
minutes.
this out yet, Randy is a prize jewel. I'm telling you, this guy is worth his weight in platinum, and
And that'd be a lot of platinum.
that's okay, buddy. You're worth it. I can't explain enough how much the staff and I appreciate all you do. You've done a great job.
I concur with that.
Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, and I enjoy doing it. They always say if you do something you love, you never have a day of work in your life, I guess, so I enjoy it. But I do work, so I have to throw that in to cover that. But I thank you for the opportunity to go through some projects that the city is working on. The city has got a lot going on, and it's good to see the things that are happening in the city and to see what's going on. And so the last time I was before you to give you an update was in February of 2020, right before the pandemic really took effect. So I was looking back at some of my PowerPoint slides from that day in 2020, and a lot of those bigger projects are completed and have been in use now for over a year. So I tried to only talk about and include in this presentation the things that we're currently working on right now or have just recently finished, so that you can see where we're at currently in the city's capital projects. So I broke it down into Johnson City Schools and into the city capital projects, so you could kind of get an idea of what the money that's being spent and see how some of these projects, the status are. So currently, right now, we're working on Indian Trail Intermediate School improvements, Southside Elementary Classroom Addition, and I'll go into a little more detail about each one of these as I go forward, but Lake Ridge Elementary Classroom Addition, Woodland Elementary Classroom Addition, and the school maintenance facility improvements. All these total up to about $21 million of capital work that's being performed currently as we speak. And if you notice, we finished Liberty Bell Middle School about October. That was the date of substantial completion of last October. And that was a little over $10 million project. So in the past 2 years, there's been a lot of money spent for schools. And it's part of that master plan that schools are doing in order to have 2 middle schools and to move the 5th graders back to the elementary schools, just to handle their capacity and the growth that they're having in the school system. So Indian Trail Intermediate School, what we did there was add on to the back of the school a 5,600 square foot storage facility. You can see on the left as where they're finishing up with the parking lot, that came out, matches perfectly, the brick, the design, everything comes out into the back of the school. But the benefit of that 5,600 square foot addition was that they were currently using locker rooms, classrooms. They had stuff in every place. They were very desperate need of storage. And so this kind of really helped that a lot. And inside the storage area, this you can see on the photo on the right, that's a climate-controlled storage space for the orchestra equipment. So where they kept all their orchestra equipment now was on the stage, just laying on the floor, so you couldn't even walk around on the stage. So this will have cabinets, finished cabinets that are designed to hold that equipment. It's all climate-controlled and it's secured in that area. And there's a door that leads right out onto the auditorium stage, so it's a perfect fit. Then they've got phys ed storage in this space. They've got general storage in this space, so it's going to really be a benefit, and they're already utilizing some of that space as we speak.
Total cost of that project?
$1,457,400.
Knew that off the top of his head.
Yeah, isn't that amazing? And actually, you know, and I hate to always kind of do this, but when I get the reconciliation change order done, one of the things that I really try to strive on and do is to make sure we come under budget. That's the total amount budgeted for, including A&E fees. But when we get all this done, it will probably be about $50,000 less than that. So I'm very happy that the project went as well as it did. And we should be completely finished. We have all, and this also included not only the storage addition, but we converted 16 classrooms into science labs. So they got new flooring, new countertops, new sinks that were put in, sinks that were made to ADA standards. We also did security for the foyers at the front of the building. We put the bullet-resistant film across the windows, changed out the doors, installed corridor doors that have electronic mechanisms to open so that just anybody can't walk in off the street and be in part of the school. So we secured the foyer and did all that with this project as well. Southside Elementary School, 4-classroom addition. It was a 2nd-story addition. If you look at this picture, I took this picture yesterday, and where the first floor and the grass is at and those windows was already existing, and then that had a roof on it. So the 2nd story went right on top of that, and the brick, and you can see how well it blended in and tied in. Jay Green was the contractor, did a super good job on this project. This project came in with the 2nd story, 4 classrooms. This is one of the classrooms. We're still waiting on the furnishings. They're to be delivered sometime the 1st of October. A lot of things like that had a bigger lead time than what we anticipated. But they're actually using 2 of these classrooms now with some older furniture in there. Once the furniture comes in, they'll be happy to be able to utilize this space. This project was budgeted at $1,516,000. And we also did a 4-year security on this project. We upgraded the playground to ADA specifications and then added these classrooms. And this project will be finished. They're finalizing. I was out there earlier this week doing another check on the punch list, and they're nearly finished. One of the things, and I wanted to add this to it too, just to show you what we do when we get into these projects to just improve the safety, improve our facilities to last a long time, is they installed a new fire alarm system for the addition. But when you were standing in that addition, you could see strobes and fire alarms into the existing school. And so the state fire marshal wanted us to make those sync, and that's a new code. Originally, when the school was built, that wasn't part of the code. So we got with BST to do that, and we had enough contingency money and funding in there to be able to do it, and we're doing the whole school and tying it into the new fire alarm system. So it's going to be an improvement that'll last for a lot longer time period now and be a lot safer facility. Lake Ridge Elementary School, we got the drawings done. This is just starting construction. This project is budgeted at $10,242,750. That's coming in after COVID and some price increases, but this is about 14,500 square feet, 2-story addition. But we're also redoing all the HVAC in the existing school. This school's about 24 years old, maybe. And so we're going to upgrade the entire HVAC system and install rooftop units, be able to install better filtration systems, be able to control more outside air to turn the air over in the classrooms better. And then it gives it a whole brand new system that'll last us probably hopefully another 20, 25 years before anything has to be done. This school just recently, about 2 years ago, had a completely new roof put on it. So all these things that we're doing to these schools is just really increasing the life of these schools to make them last a lot longer. And boy, our schools are in really good shape. But they've started construction. You can see on the left picture, that's where the new wing will come out. It'll be a 2-story wing. It'll actually also have a sky bridge, is what I call it. I don't know actual term, or architects will call it, but it comes from a door on the second floor and comes straight across to that upper play field. And there's play equipment up there, they play soccer up there. So instead of someone with a disability or anyone having to go outside, go all the way down to the other end of the school and go upstairs up that bank, or even and if you're in a wheelchair, you'd have to go all the way around the road to get to that upper field. Now there's a bridge and a passageway that'll go straight across and attached to the walkway. So everything we're doing, we're also upgrading the foyer security in this school. We're also upgrading the playground to ADA standards as well.
Randy,
Yes, sir.
just for what it's worth, that play field was originally designed to be flat, at the same elevation as the ground floor. And as that picture shows, it's full of rock.
Yes.
It's a big rock pile, so we couldn't afford to cut it down at the time. Somewhere a few years later, we talked about your sky bridge.
Yep.
To get over to the playground. But the school was so far removed from it, it became cost prohibitive. So you have finally brought the original package back together. Good job.
And that's amazing, because it does, by the time the addition comes out, and there's a retaining wall where they're digging out on the right picture, the bridge will be about 12 foot long, and it'll take them right into the walking path up there. So it does make a big difference, and the school's very excited about that. We're also putting new canopies on the front of this school. I don't know if a lot of you have been to Lake Ridge, but it sets the entrance door where they drop off, the parent drop off and the bus drop off is a long way off of the parking lot and where they drop off, and it's all open. So we're installing new designer structural steel canopies all the way out to the drop-off locations too, to protect the kids from the weather and the elements. So there's a lot to this project. That's why it's got a hefty price tag.
And ESSER funds will pay for the HVAC piece of it.
Thank you.
That's not a $10 million hit to the PEP. ESSER funds are $2 or $3 million on this one?
3.2 million on this one, and on Woodland, ESSER funds are 2.2 million. So that's a big help for us. The HVAC on this one is more complex, got more rooftop units than Woodland had. But yeah, ESSER funds is already in the works and will be reimbursed. We will pay it up front, send an invoice with supporting documents to the school, and they will reimburse the city for that cost. And then they will turn around and get reimbursed from the state with that. But that required, the reason the price was a little higher too is because it's ESSER money, we had to use Davis-Bacon Act and the Buy American Act on all the HVAC equipment. Thank you for reminding me about that, I forgot. Woodland Elementary, there's 2 wings. This is 8 classrooms again. It's 1 story, so we have 2 wings coming off of different sides of the building. So each wing will have 4 classrooms in it. It's approximately 13,272 square feet. The budget price on this one is $7,592,000. This one also has a complete upgrade to the HVAC system. We have been doing that. When they get the addition done, the addition is supposed to be completely finished by December. So when the kids come back off of winter break or Christmas break, they will move into the new addition, and that will free up space on the inside for us to move in and start replacing in sections the HVAC. During this past summer, we were able to replace the 2nd grade wing and the main administrative offices with new HVAC, the new duct, because we're putting in new duct work. They're putting in new duct detectors for the fire alarm system, and then having to put in new ceiling tile, new insulation, all that goes along with it. So this will be playing musical chairs. Once they come back after Christmas, that they'll finish a section, move new kids into there, free up another section that we can just bounce all over the school to finish all the HVAC.
Sure the teachers love that.
They hate it.
On the funding.
But they've been very good to work
I mean,
with.
they're cooperative, but yeah.
On the funding on all this, we bonded for that, right?
Yes, the PEP funding source is the 1/4-cent sales tax increase that was put into place 30 years ago. That money can only be used to pay debt service. So whether you have the cash or not, the way the referendum was passed, you have to go borrow the money and then repay it. So this is all bonded debt, other than the 2.2 at Woodland and the 3.2 at Lake Ridge, which is ESSER money, which is cash.
Well, and that's what I was gonna ask is, the ESSER money, does that get applied to pay down the debt, or did we take that into account? And are there any Biden bucks that used in this?
That's a Janet question. Did
I'll-
we borrow the full amount?
We borrowed $13.13 million to cover all of this. And what happened was, when we were getting the ESSER money, we thought that was gonna leave us some extra money. But when the cost actually came in because of upgrading all the HVAC and all the additional COVID increases on material and labor, it took that entire amount of money plus the ESSER money to do all the projects. So we were fortunate that the ESSER money come in, or we would have had to have VE'd out or not have completed one of the projects
That's
based
great.
on the cost.
Thank you.
Randy, on all these projects, you'd mentioned some are including extra security, or at least the entrance to the schools were being addressed, which about 3 years ago, that became a real big issue.
Did.
Are most of the schools now, or all the schools, have they made those improvements at school entry that gives them the security that's needed?
We're getting there. When I first come to work here, and Mr. Hunter was still on the school board at that time too, that was a request that they asked of me, as if we could work into strengthening and securing these 4 years to meet what the state requirements were. So we incorporated that into all these construction projects, because anytime you do any work like that on a school, that you're changing even the swing of a door or the location of a door, it has to be approved through the state fire marshal's office. Plans have to be submitted. And because the schools are such a size, you have to have architect stamp and all those things to do it. So it wasn't something that we could just go in and do ourselves. So that way, by incorporating it into this, we were able to get the drawings done, get them all approved according to the state, and get it paid for through the PEP as we did these other projects. So these 4 schools have that in their place. Now, when I get to the end of this slide, there's some projects that are going to be starting this fiscal year that will include some more. Mountain View is going to be, we're going to have to do that one, and that one's going to be a very difficult 4-year to secure. It's just wide open. And so we've been working on ideas and coming up with ways to do it, but we'll get the architect involved and get all that done. Science Hill has already kind of locked their doors, put some cameras there that people can't get inside the school without someone buzzing them in. And that's the whole thing that we're trying to do, is to make it to where you have to check in with someone, show them your ID, and then get a visitor's badge, and then they'll buzz you into the remainder of the schools. And that's the concept that we're doing on most of these schools. So all the elementary schools are heading in that direction, but we still lack a few. And we will work those in as we can get to them. The school maintenance facility improvements. Mr. Peterson asked me to put this in here because this is where my office is at, out on Oakland, where school maintenance was at. We are combining city facilities management with schools maintenance, and we're all in the same building. We all share the same warehouse. The existing facility was 30,000 square feet. We needed to build some equipment type sheds on the outside so that we could park vehicles and trailers and equipment outside to free up space on the inside for racking and things that need to be protected more from the elements. So we constructed 2 buildings. They're about 4,100 square feet. They're the longest one you're looking at on the left photo is 24 by 96. The one on the right is a 24 by 75. And so it gives us ample space outside. We fenced the entire area in, put an automatic gate on it, and it's really working out really well. All of the city facilities crews are working out of this facility now. School maintenance works out of this facility. It's just working out great, and we're all in the same boat. When we've got school projects going on, Joe Barnes, who's over facilities maintenance at the schools, can come down to my office and ask me a question, or I can go to his office, and it's just working out really good having us all in one spot. So we really appreciate you guys funding this project for us. And it was funded through PEP as well. All right, on the city side, we got a solid waste baler canopy. and I'll go into a little more detail about that. That's kind of confusing. Carver Recreation Splice Pad. You guys were there when we did the ribbon cutting on that project. Carver Recreation Restrooms, Public Library re-roof and canopy guttering, Rotary Park restrooms, security upgrades to City Hall, and then the Water Sewer Service Center complex.
How close are we on the Carver restrooms?
Do what?
How close are we on completion?
We're very close.
Very
Next
close.
week. We'll probably be
Okay.
finished next week.
When's the first flush gonna be?
Yeah, so we might have instead of a ribbon cutting, have that.
Ceremonial flushing.
Ceremonial flushing.
Flush all that.
That's exactly right. So at the Solid Waste Recycle Center, this building housed a cardboard baler that they had purchased at an extreme expense to recycle and bale cardboard so they could sell it. And it didn't have anything on the face, and you can see the opening in there. And when they would dump their cardboard, it would be outside, and if the weather was bad or the rain, it was just creating havoc trying to get it through that baler. So Mr. Pinzola asked me if we could get a canopy put on that, and it needed to be high enough so they could bring those large dump trucks in there to dump the cardboard. So we designed it and started construction on it, and you can kind of see on the right photo how much higher it is than the existing, so they can dump everything outside. Once they get a bale, they can even let it lay outside till they can move it to the location or get it loaded on a truck, and it just protects them from the elements as they're working to do that. This project was about $290,000. It'll be finished October the 13th. I think I've got it scheduled to do a final inspection on everything to get it completed. The Carver Rec Splice Pad. This has been a very neat project. It's been very widely accepted at Carver at the facility out there. You can go out, before school started, you could go out anytime and see a bunch of kids playing in the splash pad. But now after school, they tend to come down till dark. So it's getting a lot of utilization. It's working very well. It was budgeted at about $416,000. I think it ended up costing us about $402,000 to complete it, but it's a nice project, and it works really well where it's at. One thing I wanted to mention about this one too, this one is a recirculating splash pad compared to Rotary, which is a new water, fresh water, old water goes into the sewer system. So if this really pans out and works really well like we think it's going to be, eventually one day down the road I may be coming back to you to see about changing Rotary into a recirculating system as well, just from a cost-saving standpoint.
Randy, wasn't half of this paid for by a grant, though?
Yeah, $200,000 was paid for by local Park and Rec grant. And here's Carver restrooms, the Carver Park restrooms. You can see we've already got it painted. They're getting ready to pour the front sidewalk. They've got all the plumbing fixtures set. They got the handicap bars on the inside. We've just got to finish up some of the doorknobs and some of the features, but we should be completed with it next week. We've already begun grading around it and sowing grass and everything so it can be finished and opened up here pretty soon. I know it's been a long time coming, but we're doing this in-house. And so with the crew I've got and we have usually about, the city has about 508 buildings. I don't know if you guys know that or not, but we have 508 buildings. Now that includes every water sewer treatment plant building, all the pavilions and all that. But we get calls on nearly all of them for something. And so we normally have about 100 to 120 task or work orders every month that we respond to. Some of them are high priority, some of them are lower priority. So when we're doing a project like this in-house with the manpower that I got, sometimes we have to get pulled off to do other things. And so then we come back and work on it as we can. The public library, this was PEP funds used to pay for this, but we put an entire new rubber roof on it. The roof was about 21, 22 years old, had started leaking in one area. So we replaced all the roof with a new EPDM rubber membrane roof. And then the one main thing that we did, and it was very difficult to do, but it needed to be done, is you see the green canopy that's on the front sidewalk in front of the library? That had no guttering. So when it would rain, water would sheet down on both sides and then curve its way in. So it was running into all the post light fixtures that was on the library. It ruined every one of the light fixtures. So we replaced all those exterior light fixtures. It was beating into the concrete. Plus, you couldn't even walk under it to get into the library without getting wet. It just blew in that much. So we installed guttering and repainted all the structural steel and everything on that. And so it keeps the water piped away from the building and away from that sidewalk and those lights now. And so we had that was done for about $236,075, including the roof. This is the Rotary Park restrooms that we finished. We built these in-house as well. And we got this finished in May of 2021. And boy, it's a big, popular place out there, because now parents can stay in the playground, watch their other kids, while another kid may go to the restroom and still be supervised. Before, they were having to come outside the fence and go into a bathroom, a temporary bathroom, or Harris Pavilion. So this turned out really, really good. And these bathrooms are all ADA handicap accessible. They're 2 family style on each side, so you whichever one's available, but they're single user, and it works out really well. Security upgrades to City Hall. Down in finance, you can see, and I think Janet really likes this project very well, but the countertop and even over where water sewer, where you pay your water bill, was all open. And so it was exposed. They had some security issues down there in the past, and then COVID hit, and so COVID was a concern. So we just decided to kind of make that a more secure area, but still make it customer friendly. So we built walls around that over the top. This was done in-house as well with the crew that worked for the city. And then we put in bullet-resistant glass at each one of the tellers. All of the bottom countertops, all of the millwork is all bullet-resistant with fiberboard, and then put everything back so that you can't tell it. Did that at water sewer, also did it up at the switchboard, and also did it in HR. So to try to do some upgrades in those areas where they had a history in the past of some issues that they'd have to call the police or get somebody down there really quick. So it makes everybody feel more comfortable in there.
Did we have some COVID money to help pay for that too?
We tried, but it would not. They would have paid for plexiglass, but they wouldn't have paid for bullet resistant. So we decided just to kind of go ahead and do it based on the security issues they'd had in the past. Now, we do need to finish the switchboard. We're going to wrap the bottom with that fiberboard and then put like a wood grain like the counters up there and finish that up. The Water Sewer Service Center, you guys were at a ribbon cutting this morning. That is a huge project. It's going to be very nice when it's completed. There'll be 6 buildings. There'll be gas station or gas pumps. There'll be wash bays for the vehicles. The picture on the left is the rendering of what the administrative office building will look like, and it will set right where this picture's at. You're looking at it almost at the same angle. This morning, that was when you come into the parking lot, the big pad on the right. So that's where the administration building will sit. This is a nearly $15 million project. It's going to go through till, if we finish by December of 2022, I'll be a happy person. We've had some issues that we've had to overcome with lead times on metal buildings and engineered buildings, but we've gotten through all those, gotten commitments on when the delivery dates are going to be, and GRC's working through all those issues and putting in underground utilities, digging the site pads. They're actually going to be building and putting in footers and foundations for building 3, which is a big warehouse building, and they're going to build that building because it's the first one coming in on the schedule. They're going to go ahead and have it erected so they can use it to store material that they're having to buy ahead of time to alleviate the lead times on them. So that's going to be a great project. Now, this is the upcoming projects that I've been working with architects and design people that will be coming up this fiscal year. We really hope to get most of this going in this fiscal year. Science Hill High School Science Labs renovation, they got 11 science labs up there that are original to the school. They're in pretty rough shape. So ESSER money has already been approved by the state to upgrade those. So they'll have to have some hazardous material abatement, going in new millwork, new sinks, everything to make a modern day science lab into those classrooms. And the staff, the principal and the science staff at the school are very excited about this project. So we've already got an architect engaged. They've approved his contract to begin design of that project. Mountain View Elementary, the HVAC upgrades will be an entire, that's the largest elementary school we've got. That school's about 100 and some thousand square feet. And it's got a sloped roof instead of a flat roof. So right now I'm working with Henry Welch, who is one of our mechanical engineers who's got a great deal of expertise on how to get that school retrofit and a new system put in there to meet all the ASHRAE standards of outside air. But that project will be coming up here pretty soon. Liberty Bell Middle School, the bell tower, we've had the bell refurbished, and we've got a conceptual design to build a new tower. So that'll be coming up this year as well. I'll be bringing that to you all. Town Acres Elementary, that school's old and has the old pod system. So the kids, when they're changing, going from one pod to the next, it's open courtyard. So we've developed and designed a metal mesh and panel piece that you can't see through, that'll go around on the outside and connect those pods for about $150,000. So it encloses that courtyard and gives more safety and security to those kids when they're changing. So somebody from the road or from the neighborhood can't be watching kids change classrooms or do something unsavory. The Convention and Visitors Bureau building renovation, that's coming up, that we're going to take the first floor where Fleet Feet's at. We're going to remodel that and build some office space in there, make a visitor center, and add some bathrooms into that. We will be getting started on that within the next couple months. And we're planning on doing that with in-house forces as well. The former Ash Street Courthouse renovation, talked to you a little bit about that earlier. Keystone Community Center needs a new roof. The roof's gone on it. So we're going to replace the roof, and all the wood that's around the outside of that building, we're going to cover that in some type of vinyl or metal to protect it for years to come. Legion Street pool brick wall rebuild, no doubt every time you drive by there, somebody always asks you, that brick the brick ties failed, and that brick just fell off that wall. The block's in good shape, but the brick fell. So we cleaned it all up, and so now I'm going to bid out taking the whole side on Legion Street and Main Street off, installing new brick, taking the cap of that brick off and putting some type of a metal cap on that to prevent the water from seeping down in there and felling the brick ties. The police shooting range, I've got an engineer working on updating all the lighting at the police shooting range, and what we'll do is update that lighting to LED, and then they'll have programmable lighting so that they can do real life simulations like at night with blue lights flashing or red lights flashing, or even light it up. And we're going to do that on the handgun range and the long rifle range. We're also going to update their moving target. Their moving target is pretty dated, and so they really need an upgrade on that. So we're working on an engineer to get that completed, and then we'll get that out to bid. Freedom Hall skylight replacement, you guys have already approved the contractor's Burwell. We're going to replace the north and the south side in phase 1. Then we'll come back next year and do the east and the west sides. Freedom Hall bank stabilization, those drawings are nearly completed. We're going to terrace that bank that erodes down into that parking lot. We're going to terrace it and build some short retaining walls in there to keep that from happening, and then also allow maintenance to be able to mow it easier.
Is that the one where you come out of the cafeteria, excuse me, headed toward the fields down there? It's on the left.
Yes, as you come out right where you'd enter into the old gym.
Will you add any steps there?
Yes.
Okay, because people come down that bank.
They do.
On their own.
And I don't see how they do it, but
I
they
know.
do.
I've done
But
it
yes,
once.
part of this is bank stabilization with short retaining walls and some steps that'll come down and line up directly with the sidewalk that's already down in the parking lot going straight to the football field. And then Tannery Knob, the bike park restrooms, that's in our capital plan this year to try to do that. That's going to be a very difficult project. I hope you guys will be patient with us as we work through that. I'm having to work very closely with water sewer, and they're working with us to figure out how to get water. You know, the restrooms are going to be located higher than the tank. And then also you'd think, well, sewer will run downhill, but it doesn't run downhill that way. We're going to have to grind it and pump it over to the side. So that's going to be a difficult restroom to put in, but we'll manage and we'll get it worked out and be able to do it. Any questions? I apologize for taking so long. I know that kind of bores you, but there's a lot of things going on.
Great job. We're excited.
I might add too that Randy is helping, the animal shelter is building a new spay-neuter clinic. We have had a very, very generous donor who was paying for about 90% of that. And Randy is taking on that project as well to help us get started. So.
I'm enjoying it. Thank you. And if you ever need me to empty the room for you again, just always let me know.
Are you available in 2 weeks?
Thank you all. I appreciate it.
All right, thank you. Mr. Peterson, do you have anything else before we adjourn?
No, sir.
All right. They'll stand adjourned. Thank you.
Yes, I saw them.
Never stand between